I'm looking for a motion to table the minutes for the next meeting.
I'll make them.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'm going to table the minutes.
Okay.
Why don't we, there's a couple items I saw on the highway, one on the highway budget. Because we forgot to turn the page, there's a line for the maintenance of the highway shed, or I should say the facilities. And they didn't appropriate the money that we this year, and they have a line that's existing. So that has been brought up to items that we either corrected or something.
What's the line item there?
You better ask me a tricky question.
It's 4312.
22?
Yeah, building maintenance,
4312.
2312,940, building maintenance, which is the highway shed.
Yeah.
This year they spent $4,519.65. They're not requesting anything. So that leads me to believe that either they're not gonna do anything to keep the maintenance building up in the facility, or they're gonna do what they've always done, is just pay for it, and then at the end of the year, see if they got money left over to explain how they pay for it. You know, I can see if it happens in the middle of the year, but you can't do that stuff. It has to have some dollar value in it, even if it's $1. So,
Do you remember what the cost for the 4,500 was for this year? What did they spend, what did they, is it something annual that?
no, it's just, they started it, I think, in February, and when I saw the line item change, I asked Heidi, well, how are you gonna pay for this? Are you gonna transfer money into it? And not to beat a dead horse, but the standard answer is, we'll get back to you, and it's just sitting, it's been, each month they have some expenses that just keep adding up to the point right now it's $4,500, so I had no idea where it's coming from. So that needs to be addressed, and the other thing was, they were supposed to get back to us for this meeting on the pay raises, if they were gonna do anything, and also the highway, they were gonna have a warrant article to increase the pay for the road agent, so. We'll just,
So we'll have to deal with those.
we'll just have,
Next meeting.
the recording secretaries send those questions to Heidi. Okay.
In general, all of the raises and then highway,
Well, yeah, the highway.
raise for the road agent. I mean, yeah.
Sorry, Mitch.
It's okay. Get you up to last when you're ready.
No, the budget committee can request all the transfers we document. Part of the 32. No.
Gene, there was a couple of things that were, one was missing on the highway department on page, was it 40? Yeah, 40, yeah. 4312,940, building maintenance for the highway shed. Year to date, we spent $4,519.65. The department requested the money for next year. I believe it's just an oversight.
4312, 5, what did you say?
940.
940, it's on the second page.
Building maintenance, 4519.
This is on, as of.
This was, this printout she handed us was 9/18/14. Did you get the notes from?
I've got 192614 that's still not on there.
Yeah.
So you're talking about the year-to-date
Mine's on
expenditure?
No, not here.
Oh, yeah, 9.
No, budget, yeah.
The department never requested anything, and
doesn't know if he had to
And
spend.
the selectmen never approved it. This is, now, did you approve the highway?
Yeah,
Well, Bob never requested any dollars, and you get a maintenance figured out. So someplace along the line, you're gonna have to get together with Harvey and Mark to put some money in.
you
the
know,
line
dollar,
or something.
right?
Yeah, that's.
Well, I mean, if you put a dollar in there and you know you're gonna spend $6,000, you're just actually just trying to trick the public. I mean, why don't you put what you think you needed to run and try to get out something else?
I'll bring it up tomorrow.
And the other two things that were not on the agenda was we're gonna get back to, so the pay raises and whether you're gonna have a warrant article on the highway agents for pay.
They're gonna do it, they haven't decided, they haven't approved the warrant yet, but they're gonna do it.
Oh, okay.
Because I shared the discussion we had here. Okay?
Yep. Okay. Does anybody have questions for the school as we move on? Because we
I
have,
submitted mine.
you submitted, I think I sent you the one from
I believe this is
Anderson.
the one about,
Actually, in a nutshell, it's just about the surpluses at the end of each year, how and when the effective tax rate, and like now that the audits are done, because we were told there was like $460-something thousand surplus between the last 3 years, and it was gonna go to reduce taxes.
it is.
And then the next statement was, but we submitted the MS-25s every year, and my question was, has some of the surpluses already been applied to the MS-25, or none of them, and now we have
No,
$465,000?
what happens at the end of each year, on September 1st, you have to file the DOE 25. And on that, it has a column for your unreserved fund balance. So in other words, what's left over. And then when you fill out the MS-24, also at the same time, you list all your sources of revenue. And then at the end, there's a slot where you plug in your expenditures. And the difference between your expenditures and your sources of revenue is what the town has to raise. In this year, in the slot that said unreserved fund balance that will be applied to revenues, it was 467,000, sorry here.
It's at 457,500,
Yeah, it is very close to that.
that's what it says in the minutes here that was reported to the,
It's $467,500.18, yes.
And can you give us a breakdown of that too?
And well, what I've figured out roughly now is that $114,563 of that is specific to fiscal year 14. So the remainder of $352,937 is past years.
Okay, the reason that doesn't make sense to me is you haven't done the 2014 report yet.
I did
Excuse me, the audit yet. The audit has not been done for 2014, you said that.
Yes.
So, but we have $114,000 coming back to reduce taxes because it's fund balance. There may or may not be more next year after the audit for 2014.
That's correct, and they'll just adjust it next year.
That's the issue, I think, and that's what the budget committee has been talking about, and that's what it's
Well,
very
I can't
concerning.
speak for past years, I can only speak for this year. And this year was a very, there was a lot to clean up. I spent all summer trying to close out the year. I closed it right before I did the MS-25, and that's what I reported to the to the DOE to reduce taxes. Hopefully, the auditors are coming, well, they were actually scheduled next week, but because we've had server problems, they're being postponed for a week. And hopefully next year we'll have them either late August or early September, and then the following year we'll definitely have them in August.
Definitely have the audits in August.
Yes.
And I think that's the message that needs to go back to the school board. I, for one, as a Fremont taxpayer, am quite concerned that we now have elated that we have $352,000 worth of surplus. However, that is misleading to the public because we're gonna have we should have a decent drop in tax rate this year. And if we go appropriating the same thing for next year that we did this year, All of a sudden, next year, it's gonna go sky high, and who's it gonna come back to bite? The budget committee, because this 352,000 should have been applied to the tax rates from 2012 and 13. That's why it's extremely important that the tax audit, that the end of the year audit be done before the tax rate is set. I had no idea that that was not the case, and it's very highly unusual.
Right, yeah, we had,
It's not highly
It's not.
unusual. I've worked in many districts and,
I've never had it done before the end of October, the earliest.
yes, exactly.
Now, the ones that I've worked with for years, they want it done in August because their selectmen are requesting it be done so that it can affect the tax rate appropriately. It'd be $352,000. It's awesome, it's great, but it's gonna send the wrong message because now, I hope people start voting things in because they haven't voted things in for the last 2 years. We've lost a lot in the town, we've lost a lot, the school contracting would go through, other things haven't gone through.
Right.
Now, we're gonna get a huge reduction, this is a lot of money for the town of Fremont to turn back. So, that's my point, it is best business
You
practice.
still have to raise a little more, at least on the school end, than you did the previous year, from my records. So I don't know if the tax rate's.
What do you mean?
Because each year, after you do the MS 24, as I explained to you, you list all your sources of revenue, then you plug in your expenditures, and the difference is what the town has to raise. And this year, that the town will be raising $10,748,346 on behalf of the school.
Right, for the 2014-15 school year.
That's correct,
That's correct.
yeah.
But there's gonna be $467,000 really, that's gonna be coming off that.
No, that's after the 467,000 is applied. See, if you,
You applied that for revenues, right?
yes, exactly, thank you. So I've listed all my sources of revenue, which includes the excess fund balance. Then you plug in your expenditures, and the difference between those is what the town will raise.
So what you're saying then, there is not gonna be a reduction in tax rate this year, even though we have a $467,000 surplus?
I'm not sure if there's gonna be a reduction in your tax rate, I'm just telling you from the school side, the number is very close to what it was last year.
I'm a finance person, and that does not make sense to me. Does it make sense to you? That we can have a $467,000 surplus and not affect the tax rate?
So we spent more, we spent over that 400 and something that we're putting back in addition to,
No.
so yeah, I'm just trying to figure
I
out.
can't figure it out
Why-
either.
why that doesn't-
The budget was up last year.
the total budget that we.
So whatever, about a half million, we're
It
taking
was
off
about,
one.
it was about 700
And
actually.
you
It
subtract
was-
four
Yeah,
hundred thousand from
so
that.
that's why we didn't spend it.
Well, that's what I mean, it was higher.
The budget was about
$700,000
$700,000
more than the year
than the
before.
previous year.
It was 400.
So it's a moot point then, the surplus is a moot point.
Right, because what happened is, there's a tuition for Sanborn
Exactly.
is what
Caused it
really
to
hard.
spike.
Caused it to spike. It was-
But that brings me to my next question, that contingency of 330,000 that's been transferred into a contingency
It's actually more
fund.
than that now, I just
Yeah.
transferred another about 140.
So out of the 11,400,000 that was adopted for 15, 300 and some
Closer to 400, yeah.
close to 400,000 is now set aside in the contingency fund.
That's correct.
If you looked at their transfers and their notes. So there's,
So we're being
Possibly
prudent
a
about
lot.
it. And what will happen is that money, if
as
it's
long as
not,
it doesn't get spent.
as long as it's not needed for tuition or tuition type expenses, because at any
Or
point in
whatever
time.
decision the school board
Right,
makes.
yeah, or whatever, that's right, whatever decision the school board makes, but,
Everybody's so confused, what are you talking about?
Well, they, when we adopted this budget, the 11,000,004,
This for this year, 50/50.
yeah,
Yeah.
15, they, we appropriated money for tuition and health insurance. And both of those line items came in significantly less right now than what they
the health
budgeted.
insurance is almost gone, just so you know, because we've had people, switch plans on us that we didn't.
They had life changes, and so they
Exactly.
were allowed to
So
change
they
plans, so we
transferred
lost that.
they used line item transfers to take it out of health insurance and the high school tuition, and they dropped it into this contingency fund. So it's sitting there, and as far as I can see, it hasn't been moved out yet.
It has not been moved out, as like I said to you, I made budget transfers at the last, that were approved at the last board meeting that actually, that actually added to,
That's right.
because what happened, the previous deposit, if you will, to the contingency fund was based on the GMR. This next little deposit that we made was based on the fact that not as many students went to Sanborn as we thought were going to go.
Because what happens every year is we get a high, when they give us a GMR from Sanborn, they give us a high amount, and then when the actual comes in, it's lower than what they said, what their estimate was, but we have to base our budget on the original GMR. So what happens is the town's getting nailed, because we have to raise money for the original GMR, even what we pay is lower. So we end up getting that back in taxes.
And from what I could also
Right.
see in from previous budgets on the tuition,
Yeah.
it seemed like instead of budgeting for the actual number of students that were slotted to go to Sanborn, they would budget for fewer students. So therefore, there was never really a contingency there. It would be eaten up by the fact that they estimated wrong on how many students would actually be attending. We took the actual students that were in each grade and budgeted for them as though they would go back again next year. I believe some families moved, some of the 8th graders didn't quite make it over, but you had to budget for them just in case they came.
So it's safe to assume that that money will come back to, at the end of the year, in the form of a surplus.
Depending what the final tuition amount is for, if the final tuition amount is less than what the GMR is, yes, it'll come back.
When you say final tuition amount, are you saying that they can go up in the middle of the year? Don't you know what your tuition
No,
is now?
I think what Andy's talking about is and also, occasionally we do get students
Yeah, we
mid-year.
understand that.
Yeah, and
Right.
see, right now, we budgeted for exactly the kids that are there. If there are any changes, if I have any significant, rise in attendance, then we will have to pull out of there, because we put it all into the contingency fund.
And what I mean by the final tuition is like I said, we get the GMR in the fall, we have to base our budget on that, but then they have their annual meeting. Well, actually, they have an SB2. So they have their vote, and when they vote their budget in, it could be less than what
That's
we
next
budgeted for.
Yeah, but we've already done that. I've already
This
put the
year.
money in the contingency.
Right, and that's where the contingency money's for,
Mhm.
So,
It's if there are any unusual costs.
yes,
that the board
yes.
votes on.
School burns down, we might have to use it. But other than that, we can go back.
Right.
So it's slated for tuition, so if it's spent on tuition, otherwise it's safe to say that we'll go back to reduce. It should.
Right, yeah, that's right now, the school board is very,
It's a
very
board
careful about
decision.
spending it on anything. We are very determined. Now, what will happen, after the spring and elections, I don't know, but right now, the school board as it now stands will not spend that money any other than tuition and healthcare. That's it.
The whole board would have to go
Yeah,
on
because
that.
that's what
Yeah.
it says in your minutes.
Right.
That it was budgeted for insurance and tuition.
Right.
So they should go back to the tax.
That's, I'm very determined, we will not touch that.
So it's safe to say that if this budget had gone up that $400,000, it's for the tuition, that we would have had a really sweet decrease in taxes this year. So we're not gonna, and I think that's the message Greg told us, is we were gonna see a nice surplus, and it's like, wow, that's really good, and then now you're telling we're not, so it's like, okay, that's not so good, that's even worse than I
It
thought
just
it was.
won't go up as much as it was going to.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
basically what's happening.
Because the other advantage we have is that there's been building and stuff in town, so the assessed value is gonna go up with the town. And it's gonna go up more than it has in the last couple of years, it's only gone up like 1%, 1.5%, 2%. So that's gonna offset some of, some of the taxes too, so that's gonna be helpful.
Well, the thing is, what's really difficult for the town too, and I've seen this happening for the last 5 or 6 years, we've got really, nothing's got approved, our little savings accounts, our capital reserve, nothing's getting approved, because everything keeps going up, and we have to support the schools, obviously.
Right.
So, the message that I like to send to the school board, and I know that you're working on budgets now, is, we have to be really prudent, because we've got to work here as a team, and this town is really suffering. I think the town services are suffering
Right.
more than they should be too, because people just can't pay anymore.
You wanna talk about the projected school budget?
Want to make them feel good?
Yeah.
it looks like we're down about 1%.
That's good, that's excellent.
And that
That's excellent.
includes $100,000 to abate the asbestos. If we took that out, we'd be down 2%. So right now, we're projecting, unless we've missed something, that
Yeah,
we're gonna be
that's
down about
over.
1%.
Right, just over, I think,
Over,
yeah.
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 That would be nice, because without the full town meeting on it, people are just voting for their, with their pocketbooks, and
I
we've seen it
agree.
year after year after year. And I understand that too, because I'm retired now, so it's
Right.
like, you know, it's
Yeah.
a lot of retired people in town, so,
Mhm.
and I feel for them. So we really have to start working together, because I'll tell you, the town, I really think the town services have suffered greatly.
I think they have.
I really do, and I really, I'd like to see some change.
Can I say something, ask something actually? There's two things I need to ask of the budget committee. One of the things that is, Andy mentioned, which is a huge problem for this district, is the GMR for the tuition rate. And we could alleviate having to budget that money if we had a trust fund for tuition. It basically is a savings account that we set money aside, that we could budget for what we think it's gonna be, and then if we miss it, we have this trust fund to pull from, and we don't have to keep pulling it out of the pockets and giving it back to the town. So that's something that I'll be bringing to the board, is to put together a trust fund for tuition, which most districts who tuition their students out have, we don't. And to put hopefully up to $100,000 in there. And then that's could be 4 students, it could be 7, depending upon how much tuition is, or 5. So that would help to keep the budget more steady. I'm trying to work on budgets that are not going to change a lot over time, so that everybody can expect what it's going to be. That's one way to control that. So I'm going to suggest that. The other question that I do have for the budget committee is the question of the asbestos. We put into the budget to abate the asbestos. We have an estimate of somewhere around $100,000 to $110,000 to do that. We would get all the floor tiles out. We have about 12,000 square feet of asbestos floor tile and mastic that needs to be abated. Part of the reason for having to do that is it's beginning to disintegrate. And also, we planned on putting in a science lab this year. The classroom has asbestos tiling and we can't touch it. We can't put a lab in over asbestos tile. So we need to abate it. So it needs to be done. The question would be for the budget committee, what would be your preference? To take it out of that surplus that we're going to have in that contingency fund, or keep it in next year's budget? You don't have to tell me now, but it's something I'd like the budget committee to think about and consider going forward. It would be helpful for the board and for me to have your advice when we're looking at that.
It's kind of early in the year too to look at, you may have surpluses in other lines, not just in that line. You mean, you always take the guarantee, if you look at it and always just take the guaranteed money, you know it's gonna be there.
We could take it from
I think
anywhere.
I think you need to look at other lines too, or
But the
is there
thing is,
something
we
that you
know
put
that
up?
that money's already there. Do
Yeah.
you see what I'm saying?
So we could just tie it aside for now. If we got more money in the other part, we would just shift it to that. There's no question we would do that, if you're thinking about pots of money. But the question is, for the budget committee, we want to see a teacher contract go through. That's one of our big things, is we want to get that contract. We're keeping our costs down to do that. The budget's down this year. Do we want to move that asbestos abatement into this year, where we know we're going to have money, or put it in next year? Think about it. Talk
So if
about
you
it.
move that money, you're talking about a flatline budget, basically.
No,
No,
less.
we'd be down 2%.
We're already down.
We're down 1 now.
Like 1.2%.
We'd be down about 2%
Yeah.
next year.
Oh, so if you use this money, but we're gonna get less money back, so I mean, someplace.
That's correct.
So
Either way, it comes out of the pocket. It's
Right,
just a question of
right.
which year would you
That's what I
want to
meant.
see that.
Exactly. yeah.
Sorry, misunderstood.
Can I ask a related question?
Sure.
Is it time sensitive or when you get that abatement process completed?
It's about 3 to 4 weeks to have it done. We would start immediately when school gets out. Following that, we would have to tile the floors that are being abated. And then we would have to fully clean, which means part of the 110 we've set aside is to pay a moving company to take things in and out, and paying cleaning company to come in and do the building when it's done, so that we'll be ready for school. We should be able to-
Have you already had bids and con?
We have not done RFPs, but I've been in contact with 2 different companies, and they've given us rough estimates. And we put it on the high side, so it may come in at less than that, but that's what we're
But you
looking
have
at.
an idea what it's gonna be?
Yes.
Yes, that's the 110 she's talking
Does
about.
that include the moving and the
Yes, it
cleaning
does.
Yes.
Yes, it
and the new
does.
tile?
Yes, it does. That should be the full cost of it. The only thing that we're not positive about, that's why it's at 110, is the
Consult,
The
I mean,
consultant.
the hygienist.
hygienist that we
Yeah.
have to use. I'm guessing 10 on that, maybe a little more. So, and we can't do anything with the building without asbestos in it. It's,
So back to my question, you've kind of set a timeline, like start when school gets out
Right.
in 3-4 weeks. But is it important to occur this summer or the next summer?
for us to be able to put in the science lab that we set money aside for this coming year, it needs to be done. And it doesn't make a lot of sense to go in and do one classroom.
And as you said too, Chief, the tiles are starting to deteriorate.
Well, that was, I wanted to,
It's not an emergency situation, but it needs to be.
so on the tile, it's the adhesive, the
The
mastic.
mastic.
The message,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
There is a reserve fund, I remember we voted on it a few years ago. You have a reserve fund so that a certain amount of the bottom line can go into a,
We have about 10, 15 grand in that.
About 22,000.
20,000.
what's the formula that goes in that?
$10,000.
There's 10,000 every year.
Isn't there another building fund you have also?
No, there's a
Right.
cross fund, which is for education purposes only.
So if 10,000 goes in every year, how do you spend that, whatever you
Well, we
want?
bought a new boiler.
I know,
We
exactly.
also had an issue with the windows.
10 and 13.
Our insurance carrier.
A couple of people talking on.
Okay, our insurance carrier required us to change the type of windows we had. So we, they used to fold out, now they slide. Our insurance carrier required that we change all our windows. So we had to do that, that cost us $22,000.
10, well, it costs probably 22, but 10,000 was pulled out of the maintenance
Right,
trust
10.
fund.
So 10,000 goes in annually, then the school board can pull it out as a boiler goes or windows go, something happens. So
Right.
what was the highest it's ever been?
Is that 30, is that 40,
That,
is that 40, like 60,000, and we spent $36,000 putting in the
Right.
boiler?
That was long before.
Yeah,
Yes.
and the reason why we have this fund is so there's no surprises in the year. If something happens, like the boiler goes, we got the money to fix it. As opposed to having to run around and drag money out of other line items to fix it. So this,
That's the selectmen's way, we've been doing that years in the town.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
the old Yankee ingenuity,
Oh, yeah.
save, or you don't spend it till you save it.
right. So we were able to replace the boiler, we had to redo the windows.
and then we pulled out,
We did carpet, we did
carpeting.
electrical panels, we replaced some equipment.
Right.
actually,
Right.
the roofs, I
The
But
think.
that's
roofs
totally
on the
discretionary.
monitors.
It's
It's
discretionary.
discretionary,
Trust fund.
but it can only be used for maintenance and repair.
Right, right.
If we, just before we go off the Sanborn tuition, what is the tuition for this year at Sanborn?
It's just, I'd have to email you it exactly. It's over 16, but under 17, I believe.
And is that including the amount that's for the, what is it, the
The
actual?
capital costs.
The capital cost.
That includes capital costs, but you would have to take half of, it's not the
It's
full
about
16.
25 for special ed.
Yeah,
It's about 25 grand a year for anybody to identify.
So it's somewhere between 16 and 17, including capital costs for.
would you like me
regular
to
tuition?
email you the
I would,
exact?
I think, you mail it to the whole school board, the whole
Oh, yeah,
budget committee.
yeah.
Yeah,
And then I also,
because there are two rates.
and how, is the capital cost is in that, that's that is that $100,000 a year we get?
It's about 2,000.
Yeah.
It's close to $500,000 a year, between 400 and
Oh,
half a
the
million.
capital
Yeah,
costs,
it's
yes,
about
it's
half a
about,
million.
yeah, it's about,
Yeah. But then, I guess the problem, Mike, is that when the number of our enrollment goes down, those capital costs per student go up.
And so did the tuition.
Because the capital cost is a fixed amount.
Oh, right, exactly.
So,
But you do it because you just divide it by the number of kids and add, or they do it, add into the tuition.
right, yeah.
And how many years are we on that now?
What is it, 10 more years?
We
yeah,
got 13 years.
Yeah, 2004 is when we,
So we're down to
2005, I think, was when it actually started.
Started on, but you didn't start, the students didn't start until 2007.
yeah.
Right.
So you've got about 7 years in, so you have 13 years to go.
Is there any annual, normal, anticipated increase in Sanborn? Is it, like if you went back and did some historical, because I'd like to see historical.
I do, I have a whole
Yeah.
spreadsheet.
I'd like to see the
of-
historical of what the
Yeah.
tuition has gone up, because,
Right.
You know, this was the highest raise, highest,
GMI.
yeah,
And
well, the
then
highest
some
GMR
tuition.
was incredible, it was 15.3, I
Right.
think.
in 1 year?
Yes,
That was the GMR, which is why all that money is a thing.
Which is why the budget went up, like the 700,000 is, because of that.
Primarily that.
And see, what's really hard about that is, it's really hard for us to justify that, because we give you the 700,000 to show you need it, and then if you don't, it comes back to reduced taxes.
Right.
but it doesn't really matter, that reduction won't come back till next year,
That's right.
because the tax rate's set on it for this
Yeah,
year.
that's right.
Right.
And that's what's the really hard part,
It
because
is a catch.
it's a catch-22, and, you know,
That's why we got
It's
the
not the
contingency,
best
that's one of the
agreement.
reasons for the contingency fund, so we're not, so we can make, so the money can go back this year instead of waiting a year.
and where are you with your discussions? I know Greg said that the school board is trying to work through it
Yeah, we are, yeah,
with
yeah,
Kingston.
we're working with them, so, I'm not on the committee.
We have been looking back a long way to see if there's anything we can do to change the tuition agreement. There are some possible openings. We'd have to go before the commissioner, and we would have to say we have a difference of interpretation. It's not completely, the board hasn't made their final findings yet. They've had some conversations with the attorney that's been working on it. But it doesn't look like there's a strong case, because there were attempts made right away, and we've reached a certain statute of limitations. Attempts were made, and then they were given up, and it's been 7 years. So it's hard to justify some of the things that the board, thinks may be misinterpretations. So,
But there are certain areas where we are negotiating, where we might be able to reduce.
I've done a couple of things. I've sat down and written up an MOU with them, and it's coming to the board at the next meeting, on special education, and on some of the charges that this office has been paying that we shouldn't have been paying. One of them is for students with 504s. 504 is not special education. We've paid up to $10,000 in a year for a student with a 504 plan, and should never have paid it. I have told Brian Blake, the superintendent over there, that we will not pay for anything involving 504. No evaluations, no special tuitions, nothing, because it's not part of the tuition agreement. We pay for special education IDEA only. And what we have done, they started to charge us for secretarial, charge us for, nickel and dime. So we have written this all out. We have worked with their special education director and Brian. We've pushed back. We've gotten what we wanted to. We have an agreement. Now we have to go to both boards with that agreement on the charges in special education and have that agreed upon.
Is special ed in the contract or no?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
But it wasn't
It's
clear
called
back.
out in the contract, in the tuition agreement, as for every identified student that is in the school, they pay 50% of the tuition rate again.
Not the capital
Not
cost.
the capital cost, just the tuition rate. But if it's 12, they're gonna pay 18 for a special education student. On top of that, they will pay for paraprofessionals, specialized equipment, and specialized referral issues that come with a particular student. So it's paying to the nose.
For example, this year we have, in addition to the tuition per student and the sped cost per student, we pay, I think it's almost $47,000 for a one-to-one para. That's added right on.
For one, 47,000?
They have a very good pay scale. They give
I
you full,
guess.
full medical benefits. So if you pay for a para over there, you're paying for their family
For
plan.
180 days.
Yeah, yeah.
I guess, special ed, does that make a difference according to the program or the services provided? So no matter if it's a COOT student that just has a disability, let's say in math or
If
reading,
they have an
compared to a
IEP.
student with
If they have
Down
an
syndrome.
IEP,
oh my
that's it,
God.
an IEP.
Then I would be pushing for them to come up with some special programs, because there are very few expenses with the lower needs in special ed other than some.
It's
tutoring.
almost cheaper
Right.
for us to outplace many of those kinds of students than it
Absolutely.
is for us to send them to Sanborn.
Absolutely. At that rate, I can see
And
that.
yet we are required to send them there by the agreement.
In your discussions with Sanborn, has there been any talk about their enrollment figures, like where they're going?
They're going down.
We're gonna get caught in
That's
that
already
one, too.
causing us
Exactly, that's
We're gonna
exactly
get caught
what's
big time in that one, because the fixed charges don't go down, the divisor goes down, our tuition's gonna go right up through the nose
That's
again.
right.
That's part of what happened this year, and it will continue to happen because it's continuing to go down.
We believe that's what happened.
And
this
you
year.
have no
No control.
recourse.
No control, no vote, nothing.
I didn't vote for that contract with Sanborn, in case you wanna know.
I didn't.
And I spoke against it at school meeting, because I got up there and paid Pinkham that year, and I said to her, I said, you know what, within 5 years, we're gonna be paying $18,000 to $20,000. Oh, no, I said, yes, we are. And guess what? We are.
There is
You
Well,
were right.
I mean, I don't know whether we do a non-public talk about one issue in particular, I don't, but.
If it has anything to do with
Don't compromise
reputation.
your professional ethics, don't, I mean, you
Right.
can't say what you can't say, but
Right.
I just, that's what's aggravating for us as a town.
Right.
We don't have any say there, we don't have any curriculum coordination
Right.
there, they just take our money and run.
Right.
And you have no input into it,
Right.
And
And what we found is that the school board
Ridiculous.
saw, and previous school board saw some of the problems, and,
Tried to.
and they didn't, they just basically decided not to address them. And so
They
now,
tried.
they tried, but not, and so now, because they weren't resolved back then, we're kind of stuck with it.
well, and the problem was, back in 2002, 3, 4, there was no high schools around here that had any room for us. And there
Right.
was a history with Sanborn, and Sanborn was
Right.
building a new school, but, and people, it was a sympathy vote, and they were afraid there was gonna be no place for us to
Right.
go.
Right.
And that has got us into a situation now that is just not financially prudent at all.
Right. The only thing that you might want to consider about the contract is that it was never presented to the budget committee.
I don't remember that. I know it was presented to the town, and it was.
This was never presented to the budget committee.
No, it wasn't. And that was, I think I told you that they totally misled the voters on the obligation of the budget committee.
Well,
but-
Peg Pinkham said it was an advisory committees in the minutes, and that's wrong. It wasn't advisory.
Exactly, and the fact is, we're absolutely gonna have a contract with them, and they're gonna allow us to come in there, and we're gonna have a say, we're gonna, there's nothing, we're the cash cow.
Right.
I'm sorry to say that, but that's exactly what we are.
Yeah.
And we have no say in curriculum coordination, in any of the services, and I'll tell you, I think if you spend any money, it would be with a lawyer to really push us, because this is not right.
We've done.
I used to drive with the health
I've
department.
got a lawyer look through all the minutes, all the letters,
Terrible.
all the memos. We can't tell you what he said, but he's really researched it thoroughly and looked at every single angle.
I used to drive with the health agent from Kingston on with Safeway, and I asked him about that. He says, "Are you kidding?" He says, "We're so happy." He says,
Absolutely.
"You people are cash cows."
Absolutely.
And he says, "You know the best part about it? People never voted on it, and you don't realize that they were supposed to."
And that's part of the problem with the statute of limitations, is that should have been brought up immediately and it wasn't.
I just tell you, one person brought it up, and that was me, because I was livid.
But nobody sued.
Anyway,
I was
so
livid
that's,
at
that's
that.
business.
That's water, but anyway, so we have the contract, we're doing what we can to limit its
Yep.
impact as much as possible, and.
We've been pushing that.
So
We're
Mary, do you
pushing back.
understand now about the whole fund balance and?
Well, I understand about the tax rate. I still think it's extremely important to try to get the end of the years done, and I know there's been some issues with personnel and everything, I think that's
Yes,
fine.
and I have been, you
It's
know,
also not
business
enough people
practice.
in our office to
Yeah.
get that kind of work done.
Yeah.
That's-
And especially in light of the change in personnel, that warranted, in my mind, an even quicker audit, because you had a lot of transition back then,
Right, well, there were, I think, there was one issue that held us up.
yeah, there was a glitch with the 2012 audit. The previous
Retirement,
business administrator was supposed to get an answer to them, and
Right.
didn't, and then left, and the question was kind of dangling out there, but we had to
Right.
answer.
So we're getting on track.
So that's why the two audits were piggyback, really. 12 came out, and then fresh right off behind it was the 13 audit. And as I said, the 14 is gonna be next week, well, week after next now, because of our server problem. But, and I intend on scheduling them for September next year, and see how that goes, and if I can get it all done in the summer, then I will have it done in August.
What a lot of the schools do, and I know we used to do the same things, we used to do a pre-audit. They used to come in March and April and do anything that had to do, not to do with finances. They
They
did
did
all our
that.
HR stuff, so that when they came in, they spent only, and I had a $47 million budget. They were there for 2 weeks. They were out, and I have my report the 1st of September.
No, their turnaround time is good once they leave. They have asked me to come in for preliminary work,
Yeah.
but I will schedule the preliminary other work for probably the spring. That's actually a very good idea. They used to do that in my last district.
That's okay, I think
Yeah.
it's a good business practice, and it really just lends itself to more credibility for you and for us as well,
Mhm.
because you know, we all have to work in this together.
And that's exactly what we're doing, by giving you the budget, we're giving you this time.
But you have to, that the school performance is up, disciplinary issues are down, school is cleaner,
Mm-hmm.
it is a lot cleaner, and we're slowly but surely rehabbing, getting some of the things done that should have been done, and we're getting them done. So that is one thing that is going on with the school. So I you know, we organized it a couple of years ago, and things have improved every year since then. In fact, right now, we're comfortable, we're better than all the other schools in the area, you know, in our size town. So that's something that wasn't true 4 or 5 years ago.
That's good.
So that is one thing that we are doing. So I think we are happy with that. You know.
Mark, you had some questions.
I just had one on the line item transfers. I'm reading through the 32, RSA 3210, and it's supposed to be the governing body that signs off on all line item transfers.
They have been.
Not according to the papers.
We can explain that. We had a policy BDF,
Oh, right.
which said that the superintendent had the authority to the 2000. What we discovered was that the school board had actually voted to suspend that, but it was not in the policies. The policy itself had not been changed, and there had never been any communication about it. Since that has been discovered, the governing body has signed all the transfers.
But they were signing all transfers,
Yeah.
over
Above $2,000.
$2,000 previous to that,
Yeah.
every single transfer over 2,000.
The ones recently that I looked at didn't have, the cover page for the transfers didn't have the school board signatures. It
Oh,
just
in
had
the
Sue-
book, in
Just
the,
had Sue and,
you know something, they shouldn't be in the book that way. That was just in the book, they signed the authorizations at the board meetings.
Right.
Is that what you're looking at?
Yes, that's exactly right.
Yeah, we signed
That's
that.
well, that would be the
That's in
document
your
presented to
agenda.
the public though, right?
That's
We'll
in
have
your
to have
agenda
that.
packet.
Oh, the yeah, that goes out in the packet, it goes out in the packet.
Was it
before
only in the
meeting.
last package? Because I think only in the
No,
last.
I think there was some
Well,
other
She's
stuff
had them in.
dating
She's
back.
had them in.
That page should
It
go.
wasn't in the last
We'll
packet.
take it out, thank you for letting us know
Yeah,
that.
because that page does get signed, Mark,
At
so
the
you know,
meeting.
at the meeting, I can give you
Right.
all the signed copies if you'd like.
No, I just happen to have that one.
So the authorization that was given
That was
to,
September 23rd.
was it the superintendent that has the
It was for
authority?
$2,000 and less.
Is, I didn't see anything in the language in the 3210 that allowed that to happen.
And you are correct, but every school district does
Yeah,
have
they
the
have
state.
policies.
Some of them do them up to 12,000.
But the problem with that being, if they're not part of the governing body, if we wanted to recall the individual that could have done a transfer that maybe wasn't copacetic, we have no recourse as a budget committee, because we can recall and bring to the Supreme Court to recall that individual.
The School Boards Association has a different opinion on that than other attorneys. It's whichever attorney you ask is going to give you a different answer. But we're just, right now, that we know that that is not the policy of our board, we're making sure that the board is signing off on every transfer.
I mean, there was some for 3 cents
Yes.
last time.
Yeah.
I think to clarify that, Mark, too, it's not that all the other school boards, superintendents transfer. What the normal practice, according to what my experience has been, is you overrun the budget. You overrun that line, because that way it's,
Yeah.
and I think it's a better practice, but I mean, you guys have been doing it your way, but I like to see that, because that tells me then, if you keep changing the budget and
Right.
transferring, it doesn't tell you how you do it budgeting.
Right.
If you don't, if you just overrun that line,
Right.
you can say, well, I'm a poor budgeter in that line, I need to do better,
I
so.
agree with you, yeah.
That's, I mean, that's.
It makes no
business
sense to have
background,
lines at
accounting
that point,
background,
you should
that's
have
what I
one big
do.
number and then it's.
Right, Tyler, I taught you that.
It would be a lot less work if it didn't have to be.
Yeah, no, I agree, I worked in a school district that did that
I
too.
think
I worked in both.
Yeah.
That's a better way, because when I looked at that budget, I'm thinking, wow, you guys are great, I didn't know, but then I looked at, well, you did transfer, so the budget kept changing.
Yeah,
It's a moving target that way.
Well, that's what I mean, I'm trying to follow the money.
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, and no, rest assured though, all those budget authorization forms, they're in the book, with that page with just my signature and Betsy's, but
We
the,
signed them.
yeah, they sign them at the board meeting.
Yeah, we signed every.
So are those
They're in my office, in a binder, all together. Anytime you wanna stop by, I'd be happy to.
Feel free.
So that's a practice you're gonna continue, then, is doing the transfers and changing the budgets throughout the year.
We could, we could
You've been
always
doing
discuss doing it differently. I mean, if there's another way more efficient, you know, we're always into doing something more efficient. But we are kind of, we don't like it when budget lines go in the red. I mean, that's sort of,
I do,
They're not-
because then I can see how good you are at budgeting.
they're not supposed to go in the red, though. That's the problem. They're not,
No,
you're
the
not
bottom
supposed
line, no, the bottom line, I think,
Right.
and that's why there's a
Right.
consensus out here that basically what we're doing, and we're doing this for the town end, because you guys can, once we approve the bottom line,
Right,
you can spend it wherever you want.
right.
So, to me, it looks better for us to look at it, and we can see, and perhaps maybe even help you in budgeting by looking at the lines that go over.
So we can start
I
this.
mean, but I don't have the authority to make that decision, that's just,
We can, I mean, we certainly have to put down the agenda and have the agenda item at the school board and see if, you know, how people wanna do it.
but it's just mine, even the budget committee, maybe the budget committee, I mean, I'm new this year.
I know it's 6 to 1, doesn't it, the other, because then you can actually see the budget that you need for the following year, if you've got it adjusted up, you know, by your overrun. So you adjust the budget to what you actually needed, and then, or down, up or down, either way.
You can
adjust
see
your
that by
budget
the
line,
variances.
and
You
so
can see
that's
the variance of
another
the
way.
expenditures, so.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
You looked at the expenditures, if you had an emergency,
Right.
as long as you can explain why your lines went over, and that's what
Right.
I mean,
That's-
you can
that's my
you can always
experience.
look at the end of the year and see what you spent, and then look at the proposed budget at the beginning of the year and look at the difference.
Mhm.
That's how you can,
Right.
You know,
that's how you can look at
and
it.
the new budget.
You need
That
to-
that would probably be true if you had the same people on the budget committee every year, they could understand where you're going. You get a new person on the budget committee and they say, wow, you overspent this line by $500,000.
Yeah.
Well, where did you find it? Well, we got,
but to me, that's good
And
budgeting,
that's-
that's their job over there, because you know what, we give them a certain amount of money, and if they have an emergency of a boiler for $35,000, and they didn't have that contingency money, the school board's gonna look to them, as they should, and say, okay, where can we tighten our belts to find that 35,000? And that, to me, is good budgeting, and good business
well,
practices.
I know they've done that before, and they've done it successfully before, but the thing about it, the showing the transfers help new budget committee members be able to process the budgets quicker rather than ask 9 million questions on one item.
Yeah.
You know, in other words, yeah, is it a lot of paperwork for them? Probably a lot more than they probably care to think
See,
about.
my philosophy on that is, if you're taking it from one line to another, you're looking there and seeing you've got some money and you're transferring it because you really would have I'd really like to do that up in that other line.
Don't think like a devious mind. Think like a person that's watching.
Believe me, we have questions every time.
They do, they question every transfer, and I put explanations, as of recently, they've asked me to put, a detailed description as to why I'm making that
You have a
transfer.
very fiscally responsible school board.
Yeah.
You really do. Good.
Okay, any other questions?
So I wanted to go back to your contingency fund, and I understand if, what's going on and why you need to do what you do, so. But part of the discussion that we kind of go over and over here is that it's the same issue year to year, and it's, might be the same $300,000 or $400,000 or whatever that number is that you're wrestling with, where you raise it again, you return it again. And I think that trust fund that you're talking about may kind of take that off the table.
We'd love to take that off the
Absolutely.
table.
So
It's not fair to the taxpayers.
it's
not fair
interesting to
anybody.
me, that's,
Yeah.
I'm gonna put it that way at this
Right.
point, and it's something to think about.
Yeah, Betsy's brought that up before.
Now, would that trust fund have to be brought up as a warrant article?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
And we
absolutely.
would have to fund it. And what we would like to do,
No, you know, so I'm not, I think you need the fund, don't get me wrong, but the way the town right now is voting on warrant articles, you got better keeping the contingency fund than getting a trust fund.
Right.
In all honesty,
I can
because,
go, I can-
I mean, we sadly need a fire truck, and I'll tell you, they
and bridges
you know,
and roads
Can I
and other
suggest that
things.
you do
Well,
something
I
different
agree,
than that,
teachers
and
gotta check.
you set a capital reserve fund, and fund it through a certain percentage of any surpluses in the tuition line itself.
Right.
Well, that's what we
That's
were
how,
That's what
that's,
we
that's,
did.
that's how you would do it, and then
It's
it's,
what
You
we
still have to
would
get
do.
the voters to approve it.
yeah, but then you don't have
A
to do
little
it every
easier to
year.
understand when they're not raising money.
But you have to do it every year if you do a capital reserve fund. This way,
Right.
if you do an unexpended balance in the tuition line, a certain, because let's say the warrant article reads to see if the town will raise and appropriate 10% of any unexpended balance in tuition to put in a reserve fund for future tuition increases.
Right,
That's-
That way, it does not have to come up every year.
right.
But don't you already have a 10% fund?
No, we don't.
Did that pass?
We have a 10,000
We have
fund,
10,000.
that's for maintenance and repair only.
I thought.
What passed was the ability to accept grants.
I know that, but a couple of years ago, didn't they have a warrant article to, got defeated? All right,
How was it funded back then? How was it supposed to be funded?
What,
10% of the balance.
10%, but that was for capital
What
expenditures.
is it, up to 2% or of the?
Up to 6.
Oh, yeah, that thing, you know, you carry over some
Oh,
of
we
the
carried
money,
on unreserved fund balance.
unreserved fund balance, and you carry over
That-
to
that-
the
that's-
next year.
That failed, I
I
believe.
think
And I think that
it
will
failed.
fail again.
Yeah,
It failed, and I think it's 2%.
That's why I
not
think
10.
it's
yeah,
concerned.
2%, right.
It is 2%.
It's
Well,
2%.
It was your rationale forward on that. Your rationale forward is
Yes.
because you've seen, if Sue's got the amount of increases that you've seen years that have been up to 15% to, you know, eliminate those spikes. That to me would be the way to fund it, and you don't have to go back every year with the same
All right, we
warrant.
want it to be a trust
You
fund,
just-
because that way the school board can be the trustee
Exactly.
and vote to appropriate the funds. If it's capital reserve, it has to go before the town at the annual meeting for them to vote to say yes to it.
Just a plain old reserve fund then? Because I've had reserve funds for.
Oh, we call it trust
It would
fund.
be specific, but it would be specific for tuition.
Yeah, it'd be
The
specific.
trust fund?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a trust fund.
So it wouldn't be the expendable
You'd be
trust like
us.
we have for
No.
capital right now.
No.
Yeah, you would spend it only if you needed it for
Yeah.
tuition.
Yeah, only you get for tuition.
They would just sit there. And if it got used a little bit, we would ask from that year's surplus to put in the $17,000
In the
back
budget,
in.
that's, yeah.
Yeah, so, they keep it rolling. But it allows, what I'm trying to do is like you run a household, put aside money so that when something happens, you have it and you don't, the cash flow remains the same, as close as possible, so that we don't have to keep changing the tax rate.
Steady Eddie.
Very steady. Get the town to trust that, and then hopefully you can get some roads and some bridges.
Yeah, trying to
We
avoid,
can run our buses in.
yeah, trying to avoid surprises.
Mhm.
That we really kind of,
Yeah.
you know, that it's good to have, you know. It's good-
Absolutely.
It's good to have also a nice capital appreciation plan.
I know at one of the last town meetings, they talked about more grants and grant writing and stuff. Do we have anything in place as of yet?
We have a committee, Andy's on it,
Yeah.
and I do the agendas. We've applied for a grant, not a lot of money, but to help with the instrumental music program that's starting up. We're looking at STEM. It's very difficult to find any funds that will build, do anything with
Right.
capital improvement. They love right now to give teachers STEM money to purchase supplies or do projects, but you have to have teachers do that.
Right,
But we're keeping our eyes open, and we've got a few things that we're looking at.
right, yeah, there
But
is.
it's not gonna help the budget.
No, it's not gonna help the budget. but-
No, but it just in general to help the school
Yeah,
itself.
Absolutely,
exactly.
we're looking at that.
And another problem with grants, most of them are matching funds. If you don't have the money sitting here
Yeah, you're right, some
to
are.
get
some
into
are
it,
matching funds.
okay, if you're looking for $100,000 grant and you've got it $50,000 that you can kick in. And I found that when I was the police chief, okay, I never had the money to,
Right,
Exactly, yeah.
That's what we're looking at with the generator fund, is that you have to have match.
right. The other problem with grants is sometimes they obligate you to do continued expenses after the grant
That's true.
That's-
is done, and we are
That's true.
basically
And we're
excluding all
avoiding
those
that.
grants.
Yeah, we're
So we
avoiding
basically
that.
we're looking for grants to buy, you know, equipment and supplies. We're not using for grants to pay for salaries, anything else like that, because then,
Personnel.
when the grant's gone, personnel, because then when the grant's gone, what do you do? You know, so, but if we can buy like music equipment, if we can buy, you know, help pay for the science lab or something like that, that's
Yeah.
capital improvements that we can use grant money for, that brings a lasting, it's funny, because there's more music grants than there are STEM grants.
That's because music, nobody supports music.
Yeah, that's really a surprise, I mean, some of
One of the
the
first programs you cut.
Yes,
Yeah, exactly.
So there are a lot of foundations that will assist you.
Yeah.
It is fun.
Yeah, the next pellet, Gene was nice enough to draft a letter for us that I think everybody got a chance to read.
At least I sent it to you.
Yeah, and we will support.
I didn't send it to you because you're not on my budget committee.
But Greg should have
We'll be getting
forwarded
that.
to me.
Great, if I may tell you a little bit about that, we have been working with the New Hampshire Wood Energy Council to talk about building and what the possibilities are. One of the things they have said is that our boilers are still pretty young. And so they're not necessarily suggesting at this time that we consider wood, pellets or chips. But if you have the letters, that's great, because I'll send them in and register with them, and we will continue to work with them. We may not qualify for any grants because our boilers are young, but we'll see where it goes. We're looking at that, we're looking at solar, whatever we can do to help reduce costs and energy usage. One of the things we would like to do is refit the bathrooms and put in more energy efficient water usage for toilets and sinks and whatnot. It's that the bathrooms in the 50-year-old part of the building, or 60-year-old part, or 60 years old. So that's one thing we're considering, is starting to look at refitting bathrooms, bit by bit.
We're also looking at hiring a engineer and an architect.
Yes,
Next
that
year,
is in the budget.
We're gonna have, that's in the budget, we're gonna have to reassess the whole building, take a look at, because the building really isn't adequate. And so we're gonna take a look at the whole building, see what we need. We might put in some requests for, improved solar heating and that sort of, windows and whatever. So we're gonna be looking at that, having them come in and giving us assessment, and then we're gonna decide what we wanna do once we get the assessment.
Do you see more asbestos issues coming up then?
There's some.
We have
In the boiler
asbestos in
room.
3 of the boiler
Yeah.
rooms. Upon consulting with the asbestos abatement firm, they said not to bother with those until such time as you replace the boilers. Just abate the tiles at the present time.
Right.
The other, they don't cause any harm,
Right.
they're not. gonna
That would be the
issue.
last piece, though, Mark.
Yeah.
Is the boiler room.
Is the boiler, the 3 boiler
Yeah, so when
rooms.
we replace the boilers, we'll do,
Yeah.
take care. But the other thing is like, the building's not heated evenly, it doesn't get air conditioning, because they basically just slap stuff together when they expanded, they just sort of put more rooms on and didn't.
It's not
Yeah.
energy efficient.
It's not
Things get
energy
hot,
efficient.
things get
Balance.
cold.
Yeah, so, and that's one thing we'll be, in the long run, hoping if we can redesign the building, we'll end up saving a lot of money,
Right.
if we have a more.
And increase the compact.
Yeah, increase it, yes.
That would be good too.
So we're looking into all of that while we're considering, everything else. We are, I'm also looking at reducing possibly 2 teaching positions for classroom size. That's something that's going before the board to take a look at as well. And at that point, I'll have to let the union know, make this another consideration. That would make 4th grade classroom and 5th grade classrooms 21 in each 4th grade classroom and 22 in each 5th grade classroom. After grade 3, if you're reading on grade level, a classroom size in the lower 20s is fine. So we're looking at that. We're looking at replacing one of those teachers with a math specialist, because math is our weakest subject in the lower levels, and a part-time Spanish teacher. So we can add Spanish to the program, which has been on the docket for a while here. So we would go down 0.5 personnel. And that's in the budget as it stands, but we're going down 1%.
And we also invite the budget committee to come in to look at some of the construction. we
Yeah,
have.
that's on here too.
Yeah,
This
so,
is not the night to do it.
no, not that I do it.
Is that just because they're here, is that by appointment, or are you setting a time and saying if you want to come and?
If you want to come during the school day,
I'm just
Anytime
asking
you
what
like.
the vision is on it, so.
Anytime you like,
yeah,
So it's by appointment.
yeah, basically give us a call, take you around.
unless you want us to set up a tour.
Yeah.
You know, we could probably do.
Well, I just was asking.
Gene, you're going with us, we're going at night, we already allowed, I'll go with you.
Yeah.
We're going together, just
don't mind.
going down together.
I mean, if
Not
there's
tonight.
there's no problem, we can probably, I'd like to schedule some Wednesday prior to the meeting. That way
Sure,
there-
that'd be great. Just pick a night and we'll
Let us know.
We meet on Wednesday night, so one
Pick
other
a night
Wednesday
with good
night.
weather.
Yes, well, I don't know how much.
Getting some
weather you
choice.
get.
Well,
We
don't you
can
have?
get your
Yeah.
email addresses.
I have.
All of them?
Oh, no,
Yeah.
not all of them.
So
Yeah.
what what you're saying,
I'll send
just
it.
go down at 6 o'clock on the night, of budget meeting, I think starts at 7.
Yes.
That's a good idea. You guys make that?
The hours, the teacher's lounge, yeah, so they.
The school's
Oh,
been,
it's-
what, 3 different editions, the original plus 2 editions we've had.
One in
now.
74, then one in 2004.
Right. It was originally a four-room,
Originally it was
73.
yeah, it was originally a four-room building.
1967, 73 you said?
73 is one.
And then what's the last
Those
one?
The
modules
73
still
has the
inside.
asbestos in it.
Yeah, they did that. Most upstairs, the black tiles.
And what's the other date
It's
that you gave?
not, they're not black,
You know,
no,
ours were black.
no.
What is the other date you gave?
204.
Well, the original, yeah, 2004 was the preschool kindergarten wing,
And the original was 1950.
50.
That was my years.
That's when they consolidated schools in the country, you know, they took down the rural, one-room, two-room classrooms and put up consolidated schools in the fields. Yes, thank you.
How many students in the building?
About 420, around
Yeah.
there.
Right now?
Yeah.
That's been pretty steady, actually.
Yeah.
You kind of leveled off.
It kind of up and down. We have a small first grade and a backup kindergarten, although the kindergarten's not huge, it's 40. We have 31 in first grade, which is just 2 classrooms. And then we have the elementary, the rest of the elementary are 40s, in the 40s, and then we're in the 50s in the middle level, all the way up. So you're going to see the school shrink some more, unless we start to get bigger classes. But it hasn't happened, so right now, it's gonna be shrinking again for at least 4 more years unless we start to get more into the kindergarten level.
How are your projections? How far have you done your enrollment projections?
Well, the enrollment projections are really off at this point.
Well,
They were done when things were going well.
when they did the master plan, they predicted we'd have 560 something.
At this time?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Wow.
so that they were way off.
And they haven't been
And
done
we did,
since.
we actually had a professional come in when we did,
NASDAQ did a pretty.
yeah, it did a, what do you call it, a population evaluation thing. And,
Actuaries or something.
It might be a good
Yeah.
idea though to get those done again pretty soon, because if they're off that much, it helps us in planning and seeing where we're going to get those done. And the best one that we've seen is New England, the New Hampshire School Administrator,
Yeah,
Mark Joyce.
Yeah.
His are the most accurate. I had NASDAQ.
He does.
NASDAQ was gone in 2
He's
years.
retiring this year.
Yeah, I
They
know.
did, I mean, the state does do some, the state does have some population estimates
Right.
that
but-
they do. The Housing Authority and the Rockingham Development Commission, they have a set of figures.
You need to have educators do education enrollment though, because those guys are government.
Yes,
Part of our work with an architectural and engineering firm would be, we would have to have them,
Exactly.
Yeah.
right.
to be able to have them do drawings.
And Mark Joyce worked with somebody else on the site, I can't remember the guy's name, he's
I
retired.
know what you're talking about.
They're
Oh,
very,
yeah,
very,
Alan,
yes,
Alan,
they're
Dave Ross.
very, very, very accurate. And
Yeah.
that would really be helpful, I think, to us and to you for planning purposes.
Mhm.
Going forward, absolutely.
Right.
Does anyone have any more questions?
No, just the budget schedule.
Okay, yeah. Question about the budget schedule, you have a budget schedule, right?
Well, the town stuff's all over, I don't accept. Heidi said she sent some warrant articles in an email today.
There was no
There
attachment,
was no attachment.
there's no attachment.
I saw the email, but I didn't open it because I was private.
There was nothing to
There
open.
was nothing else.
Probably a good thing.
November 7th is when we're going to be presenting the budget to you.
Yeah. That's our date, that's our next date.
So when will they be available to us to read?
This,
I don't know.
we could give them, the school board gets it, they're going to get it Friday, assuming we have a server again.
Yeah.
And they will be discussing it the next 2 meetings, which is the 30th and the 4th. As soon as they're through with the 4th, then, and they've made their changes if they're going to make them, then we can run one.
Well, actually, the 7th is the day that they'll get it.
Forget.
The books, the 7th is a Friday.
Then who will,
Yeah,
then we will
that's
get it.
true. Budget,
Yeah,
do
so
the
we'll
budget.
give
That's
you.
right, so we figured last meeting, we lost one
Yeah, we
meeting,
come to the
one
12th.
change.
Right, so we'll give you, you'll have the books by the 7th.
By the 7th, and we meet with you on the
And I
12th.
think Frank said he'd distribute them on.
No, either that outcome, yeah.
Yeah, or ask them to drop them off.
So we're scheduled for the 12th, so we're gonna do November 12th,
November 12th, that's the date.
19th,
Yeah.
and then we go into
December
December.
3rd,
Right.
Yeah.
December 10th,
But you'll have the books by November 7th.
Yeah,
December 6th. So we have 5 weeks on the school.
yeah.
that right? Those ones I have, but.
Yeah.
Yeah.
wrote those down.
Unless we had meetings.
And if we
Yeah,
can't chop it up by
Do you
then,
guys
we
have a
can,
copy of this? This is our budget schedule.
I think we did have.
I did
I
send it.
yes.
Yeah, it's all
I
in
had,
there.
and that's what I was looking for, because.
I haven't seen it, I've been looking for
Okay.
that.
You can keep that.
That's what I need.
Yeah, Heidi, as soon as we
Do
did
you
that,
guys
we
want
sent it
copies
out.
of this?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, I got it, I printed it and brought it here and lost it already.
And Mike, you'll just email him everything.
Yes, I can do it.
Okay, good. And anything else in the meantime, let us know. You know, we're
Yeah,
happy to
please.
come.
Listen,
Yes.
on, just food for thought on the asbestos removal, because I too would like to see the teachers' contact resolved, and so we can probably get maybe sometime, I'm sure it's not a hostile work environment, but it can at times, that I would seriously think about using some of that reserve for the asbestos removal and take it out of the budget. The only reason is if you can present a budget lower, even though you don't see it in the tax break now, we've already paid it.
Okay.
From my experience, where the people have already paid it and you see a reduction coming in the next budget, somehow or another, they seem to feel a little better about it. Not always,
That's a very good point.
it's not always, but, you know, I'm sure we'll discuss it with the budget committee before the next
Any
meeting.
guidance
but-
you can give us would be great.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Can you just like
From my experience, usually it's better, you know.
Use what you have.
It might be a little painful, you might get a few bucks before that, but I mean, once the budget comes out and shows that it's significantly lower than anticipated, you might have a better response, I suppose,
I
on the
also,
other issues.
to add to what you said, because I agree with it first of all, I think that you're describing a health and safety issue. And you
Yes.
don't wanna let those things, they're not gonna get better by doing nothing. And the cost is probably not gonna go down by waiting. So it feels like there's lots of reasons to do it, and it creates your options, better options going forward, some of the better. And I think I've known that there was mastic in those tiles for a long time.
Okay.
Scott Brown told me that years ago.
It's
And,
actually.
you know,
it's
and all the inspections
Yeah.
and maintenance that has to go with it is a cost.
Yes, it is.
There's all that inherent stuff that
We
you
have the
report.
budget for the,
That's
every 3 years for the
Oh, the inspection.
inspection and all of that, and pay for that.
Yeah,
And there
and
are
all the
times that are
documentation
breakdown,
to around your care of it,
so.
so.
Can we throw out 2 dates for you, like the 12th and the 19th for the tour at 6 o'clock? Because we're already scheduled.
Yeah,
We're scheduled.
fine.
Can we throw out a couple dates and you let us know which ones works? Because that's the first two.
We'll go the 12th.
Let's do the 12th, and then you can start talking about the budget after you see.
12 to
the
6, that's what it is. 12 to 6 o'clock at the school?
Sounds
Yeah.
good to me. Now we'll be,
That's perfect.
yeah,
And we can just, so we'll just meet there.
we'll just like right
All
now.
right, well, thank you for having us tonight.
Thank you for your
Oh,
advice.
yeah.
And as always, if you have any questions, just email them.
Thank you much.
Thank you.
Have a good evening. Stay dry.
Should we just decide that, because I'm filling in my schedule right now?
It's got the 12 at 6 at the school.
Okay.
Yeah, do we need a motion first to accept Gene's letter? That
Well, I think it should be,
go with that?
if we're gonna move it, I think it should be approved here, that's the place it's gonna be.
Do you have any questions, things you want to add to that letter?
No?
That looks pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fine. So make a motion to, I'll make a motion to accept Gene's letter.
I'll second it.
As written.
All in favor?
Aye.
Can I also first of all, I voted for that, but further make a motion that Mike sign on behalf of the board, or the committee? Okay, so, we're done. Now, so you have it in a Word doc, you can print it, sign it, and
I'll
send it over there, or drop it off, whatever you
I'll
want.
drop off the copy.
All right. Thank you.
And tell Heidi tomorrow when you get her attachments.
Are we going to
What
go
are you
back,
doing?
So we're gonna,
are we
the
going back to
attachments,
the minutes, or are we going to,
No, we can do it next meeting. There's nothing, you know.
okay.
she had us, I can't remember what were those documents that she was gonna give us that?
There was a couple of warrant articles, and there was something else.
And I-
Oh, the attachment you're talking about.
Yeah.
So we could, she'll resend it, and, I'm sorry.
But I think there was also what we asked for, which was it was supposed to be the budget where it stands right now in the town, right?
It's right, the updated.
The updated spreadsheet with what's been recommended at this level.
Yeah,
You know, she readily has that, so it's too unfortunate she's got to attach it.
Did you want to ask Jean about the pay raises that they tried to, did you mention that?
We've talked about that, but we have not made any decisions. We asked Heidi to start to pull together a spreadsheet about impacts of various levels. And we have not met as a board since we asked for that. And I don't know that we'll decide that this week. What I do know is that we were working on some overdue performance evaluations.
So we're going to probably have to look at that, so one of the town school nights, right? Finish it, we haven't really finished, we've almost finished the town now.
Right, almost finished.
Yeah, the only thing we just final bottom line figure, everything else is done.
Well,
Pay raises.
Pay raises.
Well, that's only the pay raises and the
Right.
warrant article one, so that's.
Right.
I think seeing where the bottom line is right now might help with the pay raises too, because, I mean, they're gonna talk about it. I'd like to see the bottom line, that'll be already approved.
At the last meeting near the end, I asked, I'm just doing this antique thing I carry in my pocket. I put out the idea of, looking for some feedback about whether to put a warrant article in to just purchase the fire truck. For one time, Heidi said it was 78 cents or 77. We have not made a decision on that, but I can tell you that my sense of what's going on in the room I sit in is that they're leaning in that direction. It just, it's number one, it's a straight up 51% vote, and number two, it's kind of like we spend a lot of time gnashing our teeth about this every year and wind up with nothing when it's probably, if it's, I don't want to minimize this, but if it were staying with the 77 cents on a $300,000 assessment, you're looking at a one-time, $225
What would you do with
hit.
money in the capital reserve fund?
We would use that too.
First of all, they get,
But you take that capital
if you
reserve.
get one approved, and they don't release the money out of the capital reserve, you're still short.
No, you put it in the same boat. To buy it, to use that money and raise.
Yeah, because
Okay.
that's how it was, that's how it was
Okay.
written before.
I think it's a good thing to do, but
I don't know.
you know what, people have to,
Well, we
you know
failed
what
every-
the answer is, because I'll be the typical Fremont person. Sure, we'll give it to you, but we're never gonna see it go back down again, because once you get that money, next year, it's gonna be right there. That's the Fremont mentality.
That is.
No, I just, again,
I think it's a great idea, I don't know
Put it
how to
out
sell
here.
it, I don't know how to sell it though. I don't know how to make people
Well, they
understand
tried,
it's
what,
a good-
five or 6 years in a row
Lost it,
at bonding it, and
Maybe that's your
you
answer.
couldn't even get them to release the 25 grand that they already had in reserve for the police car one year.
Right.
So I mean,
I couldn't get them to release the money for OHIV equipment. It had no effect on the tax rate. It came in,
it didn't come from
fines.
taxpayers,
How
it
much
came
did
from
we use it for?
fine payers.
The only,
they lost it by a very small portion 2 years ago. Last year it was quite a bit more. It wasn't even close last year as far as.
the only issue you got in this town is, we've got two bond issues that are gonna be ending, the library and the safety.
Well, I was gonna bring that up, is it safe this stuff
Well,
dropping off?
Right.
safety complex is
Replace
like
it.
2017.
Right,
So the library's beyond that, it's
I
probably,
think it's 22.
Yeah. something.
So, and how many years on the safety complex? Is it 20?
2017, and it's
Yeah, that would be 20,
either
that would
it's
be
that
20.
year or that's the last payment and that's not 20 years.
And then now you're looking at refurbishing it.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
because you know that the
It's
boiler's
20
gonna
years
go,
old.
or you know that the AC's gonna go, because they all have a life.
Okay.
And I've been, eyeballing a roof, because of all the scary things we heard about roofs.
Yeah, they have a problem over at the library. It's bad.
Yes, they did.
So are you looking for some direction from the budget committee as to what we
I'm
like to
just,
see? I mean,
yeah, I'm just, I guess I could ask for a show of hands, but I was, I'm listening to what you're all saying, and I'm hearing,
We need a fire truck, you guys need to figure out how to get it.
You know, I'm sick and tired of
These are
that.
kind of desperate. So-
I'm sick and tired of the bond saying, and you know it's not gonna go. I'd rather take the one-shot deal at
Yeah,
the 75 or 80 cents.
Try it.
And if it doesn't go, at least you know you tried all
Well,
the
we go back
avenues.
and try something else again.
Right, next year.
Can you put it in the fire department budget, so it's not a warrant?
No,
article?
because we'd end up with a default budget, and not have anything.
All right.
Right now, you're looking at that cost and then, you know,
You know what I mean?
Has there been any discussion at the town level or school level about going back to the old session town meeting? Because a few years ago, there was, a lot of the towns around here, Chester just went back to the school.
Well, there was,
We,
I mean, that was a warrant article last year. I think it was pretty soundly
get
defeated.
soundly defeated.
I was standing
It was,
out there
okay.
shaking hands with voters, and I heard what they were saying, and you know what I was hearing was they liked the convenience of participating and going down there for 20 minutes or a half hour. That's what I was hearing. I wasn't hearing, even though I think that the experience has been that a lot of people come in and vote things down. That's not what I was hearing out there. But
But how do you get the word out there to people?
I don't know. I mean, the
That's
issue
what
is,
it
with
was.
most people now having both parents working and having kids, it's harder for them to get the time to 4 or 5 hours, you know, to come to sit.
Well, you know, and
that's
I was
really
hearing
the
time,
issue.
I was also hearing
Yeah.
there's a certain emotion that goes with
Right.
that whole debate, and some people would like to avoid that.
Oh, right. I mean, it got pretty hot sometimes.
Well, it got hot because people would leave the meeting because they thought their vote was taken into consideration, and then they could bring it up for reconsideration 2 hours later, and it gets passed.
that does, I haven't seen more than three articles go by without someone making a motion
Because,
not to
right.
reconsider the last 4
Good idea.
or 5. And Gene will tell you, the last 4 or 5 meetings we've had, none of them have gotten to the point where they've even come close to reconsideration.
No, it's almost, it's.
That's the reason why, because people didn't
Well,
like
no,
that.
it is.
People didn't like that.
Right.
I hated
Yeah,
that.
people didn't like that.
Did they look at the day of the week that the whole, I mean, is it better on a weekend? Is it the town meeting, I mean, would they get more people in?
Well, ours is the school meeting's gonna be Tuesday night.
The only thing.
You're talking about a deliberative session?
I'm talking about the
Deliberative
actual.
session,
Or
yeah.
a voting day?
Deliberative session.
Yeah, I don't think that,
The deliberative sessions, okay? The last couple of ones that I've been to, there was more people there that had to be there. I mean, budget committee members,
Right.
selectmen, ballot
Department
clerks,
heads.
okay? And had 10 or 12 citizens at large. They
Well, I
just
think that's
don't
the-
come out.
that's the history with those deliberative sessions in other communities.
Yeah, we
And
got
you
rid
would
of 90
promote
at the school one. and we-
No, I think what Chuck Gene brought up was a valid point. I'm glad we did make a motion to get out of here, because I think the budget committee is pretty much in agreement that you should go for one-shot deal.
Can I, would you mind if I ask for a show of hands about that? Who feels like that's
I'll
a
make
better
a
choice?
motion that we,
I think that's the only.
Yeah, there's no pressure here,
We've
so.
tried everything else. Why not
So
try?
it's worth a try. Okay,
Don't bother.
Oh, yeah.
all right.
I think. the
Well,
phrase
you know, part of it is that when, you know, we're all voters, we're all important people in this community in terms of being known in our roles, so I think that if there's a decision and there's a discussion and a consensus here that you know, it's to be tried, then I think that, and you feel strongly about it, then to go out and discuss that with people, so people understand and the thought and rationale behind it, I think is helpful.
Chris, a lot of towns are going to regional fire departments now.
I think this group is diverse enough, so if someone had a point against it, it would come up. So
Well, I think we're getting ready
I
to
think we're on the right track.
You know, Andy, if they don't get one shortly, don't be surprised if Fremont doesn't have to lean towards that aspect.
All right.
Because the point right now, in a couple of years from now, they
Well,
may not have anything
You
drivable.
know, and I think,
Yeah.
you know, and I'm not a fire department member, and, but I think from a mutual aid standpoint, if you want to call, you know, a mutual aid is you have something to offer, and as well as times of need request, and we need to have some contemporary equipment to bring to the table, so to say, to be and,
So you're not getting, you're saying you may end up not getting mutual aid because of the.
well, I'm not gonna say that, but I'm gonna say that they probably won't be calling us as much if we don't have anything to offer. And it really is reciprocation.
Right.
Can I ask too on the next agenda that we have a discussion about how we get this information of the budgets out to the taxpayers? Because Heidi tries it, she does that synopsis in the town report, but now we don't mail town reports, people are even less apt.
We posted it on the website.
But somehow or other,
I'm not disagreeing with you.
we've got to get it to them, we've got to get the word out to them, because they're voting again with their pocketbook and not,
You got,
they're not well informed.
what you need to do, you need to hold a series of coffee clutches or tea meetings, you know. I mean, that's what you need to do. Because when we send out those, when we send out those books, half of them end up getting thrown away. The post office would have waste baskets full of those books. The town reports, people would go, they'd be in their mailbox in the
They would
post
fit.
office, they could throw
They
them
give
away.
you a notice that's in the box, and you go take, you get, it's right into the ground file. We're not-
Right, and so like half of them got thrown away, so you were really, it was an expense, you know, when you're walking in. So, how do you get out, you know, I mean,
Maybe we're gonna get the local newspaper.
Well, the
if we have
public
local
television,
newspaper, yeah.
public television's coming up,
Well,
all right.
you get these meetings on camera.
Well, I can update you and,
We can sit there and do it.
you know, I think that you guys are videoing a lot of your meetings.
Yes, we are. People
And,
watch them.
and there is a couple of individuals that have been taking care of, what you see on the public access channel now, and they wanna start, starting with the selectmen's meeting, taping them and putting them on.
All right.
And perhaps they'll come in here, but we're trying to build that. Right now, you know, we had some funds through Comcast that was raised out of all the ratepayers.
Right.
That is available to get some equipment, and they have, they're getting prices right now.
All right, good.
All right, so I think that'll be soon, but I'm not gonna give you a date, I don't know.
Remember Keith Stan was filming the budget committee meetings, everybody was watching it. I mean, everybody.
I actually heard that
Yeah.
down at the convenience store, that the popcorn sales went up.
Yeah, but so if you got these things on,
Yeah.
on our public access, and if you had it, like, we also we have a YouTube,
Yes, I heard.
yeah,
So I skipped this.
so we post our stuff on YouTube too.
So do you have any idea on the traffic or activity on that?
I've never asked, I've never actually been on to look, I don't like looking at myself.
Yeah, I can appreciate that.
But,
Not about you, but I mean, all of us get uncomfortable.
yeah, but we do have a YouTube channel, and people do watch, you know, the broadcast, so they really do. I mean, it's amazing how many people in town, I mean, they really pay attention to that stuff.
See, we don't have civic organizations in town either to go out and do that, but when I presented my budget, I always went right to every school board.
Right.
And the meetings presented it, I presented it to the school, I presented it to the Lions Club, I presented it to the
Right.
Rotaries, you know, you present it, and that's how you get the word out. And then, that's where you get your support. We can't get people to vote unless it's to vote now.
Right, we got, yeah, I mean, there's not that many groups, there's the fire department, there's the garden club, there's a few other groups.
There's the FAAs out there, that's, I mean, those are all parents.
Historical society,
We pay attention to it.
right.
Last year, the fire department sent a flyer out.
Well, there's no single solution here. I mean, I remember going and sitting with the school board and talking, you know, it's like, we didn't get a road that was pretty horrific last March. I went and drove it, and I said, I think we need to put a camera and put up a video of what the current conditions are in this thing, because, you know, as words on a piece of paper, it's kind of hard to relate to what that means, but if you saw what was going on with the compound, you quite understand. So, and I think so, all this is about how to communicate and help people be fully aware and understand what the issues are.
Well, yeah, well, when it comes to business in town, the biggest, because I talked to a number of business people, the biggest problem they have is water.
Say again?
Water. the flood control district, the watershed
Yeah.
protection district, and the river limits a lot of people what they can do in town as far as their business. And that's just the reality of the town. But you know, I talked to one guy, he wanted to put up a 5 garage, you know, business, he couldn't because he was too close to the river, so he only put up 2. So the business was half the size that he wanted. Because, and that's part of the issue that we're facing in town, is water, that we have too much of it.
And a good building land, you're not gonna get.
Right, you're not gonna get it, because it's very expensive.
So did we vote to adjourn?
No one's made a motion yet.
I move.
I'll second it.
All in favor?